Hey there, internet friends. Trevor Starkey here with another episode of TV Thursday. This week, I want to talk about DC TV shows. So, I got into watching all of them kind of when they started. Back when Arrow came on, I hopped right on, in part led by my sister. She was a big fan of the series, and so within the first season, I was kind of watching everything, catching up. And then I kind of stayed on board when The Flash joined, and then when DC Legends of Tomorrow joined. And then when they did Supergirl, I was like, oh, that's cool. I didn't really watch Supergirl, but I did watch the crossover episodes with The Flash. And it's been interesting because as I've started doing my AC Discovery show and started looking at the idea of reading comics or something like that, I am realizing that what they're doing with the DC TV shows is largely very reflective of, I think, why a lot of people, myself included, have kind of been averse to comic books over the years. And it's in part why I've been kind of slipping on the DC stuff, is that they've just kind of added more and more and more, and it has just become too much to try and consume. So, at its peak, I was watching Arrow and The Flash and DC Legends of Tomorrow. And for the first season of Legends of Tomorrow, I watched all three of those shows every week, just kind of seeing everything that was going on. I never really still got into Supergirl, but when you had all four shows together, I definitely was checking in on the big team up things. And over time, as Arrow is in its fifth, sixth season now, I don't even know, because I've kind of fallen off of the wagon of Arrow. I kind of stepped away from that as more and more things came up. I just didn't have time to put into every one of the DC shows. I never really got into the second season of Legends of Tomorrow. I watched a few episodes and then I kind of bounced away and kept watching The Flash. And The Flash is the one that I've really stuck with throughout, and I've kind of kept up with. But even that, I didn't even know The Flash was returning this week, or had returned this week, until after it was already back. I started seeing stuff. A few people in my Twitter feed mention it maybe Tuesday night or even Wednesday morning, and I was like, oh, did The Flash come back? Which is weird, because I used to seemingly always be up to date on the season trailers and stuff when new seasons were coming out. So seeing that those shows are starting to come back up, and I hadn't heard a peep about them, it just kind of makes me hyper aware of oh, there's just a lot of stuff going on, and especially now that I'm doing so many different shows here and trying to cover so many different things, it is incredibly overwhelming to try and also squeeze in a few episodes of TV or whatever. I'm looking back at this weekly segment, the TV Thursday that I do, and the second episode I did a few months back was talking about the third season of The Flash, and kind of it wrapped up, and so I kind of did a recap of my thoughts on the whole season. And here I've watched the first episode of season 4 while I was at work today, and it was nice. They're definitely rebooting some things. They left the show with Barry going off into the Speed Force, and it looked like maybe we were going to get kind of a new status quo for a little while, and then they just immediately reset all of that here in the first episode. It sounds like there's going to be a few mysteries as to why Barry's come back with such a different personality, and why he was doing weird scribbling things, and what was going on, and kind of the new big bad seems to be maybe a future guy who's sending things back into the past to I don't know. I'm not quite sure where the big story arc is going, but that's probably the DC show I'm going to watch. I don't know if I'll get back to Arrow. I don't know if I'll get back to, or ever go back and catch up on Legends of Tomorrow. In part because I think there's just been, it kind of runs that risk of overload, comic book overload, where I never get into the comics. And I don't know where to start, and then if I start on something, I have to read all these other things to be aware of what's going on. I will still watch The Flash here, and when they do big team-up things, I will probably watch those and hop into each of the other shows to see, the big crossover story. But it's an interesting kind of parallel, I think, to the the potential turnoffs of the comic book world, and we're seeing it in the TV version of the comic book world. Whereas, like, you have on the movie side of things, you have stuff like Marvel, and admittedly, like, those are a lot easier to keep up with because it's a 2-hour investment 2 or 3 times a year to really keep abreast of the entirety of that universe. And even then, you know, if like, I've still never seen the Hulk movie, that is the Incredible Hulk, that is a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything drastic, and I don't know if, you know, you hopped out of any other singular movie outside of maybe the Avengers or something like that, if you're going to really be completely in the dark. I think everything kind of still serves as a standalone well enough that, yeah, you'll get like little Easter eggs here and there. But that's where I'm at with the DC TV shows. I really have just kind of fallen to the point where, with all the other things I'm trying to do and consume, I really only have time for one DC show, and I've kind of landed on The Flash because it tends to be, you know, a little bit lighter, a little bit less broody, so nicer, just kind of enjoyable experience, you know, harmless fluff, if you will, and yeah, that's kind of where I've landed with it. Let me know what your experiences have been with comics, if you kind of have mirrored any of these sentiments, if you've done the same kind of thing where, you know, you hopped in and tried to watch everything DC related on the CW, but have kind of fallen by the wayside or picked and choose what, like, actual things to devote your time to. And let me know all that stuff in the comments below. If any of that makes sense. I feel like this has been a rambly episode, as opposed to like here's 5 things I liked about blah blah blah. So those are my thoughts on The Flash coming back this week, and really kind of the random synapses, train of thought that kind of was sparked by that return. Let me know what you think about the series in the comments below. As always, I've been your host, Trevor Starkey from TrevorTrove.com. You can follow me at SnarkyStarkey on Twitter. Until next time, from here at the Trove, treasure your friends.